In this video, I'm going to show you 4 ways that you can use to choose colors for your colored pencil drawings and how to get the basic color accuracy with them. And be sure to stick around until the end for a bonus tip on mixing and blending colors after this. Want to learn how to draw wildlife and pets? Over on my Patreon, I offer 1 to 4 hour real-time step-by-step drawing tutorials for colored pencils and graphite. Each tutorial comes with a color sheet to help you choose colors, a high-resolution royalty-free reference photo, a materials list, and a clear voiceover with tips and explanations of the drawing process. By signing up for the student tier, you get instant access to a growing library of a variety of video tutorials and 2 new videos each month, as well as many other perks. So the first way that you can choose colors for your colored pencil drawings is to use a paint program like GIMP or Photoshop. You can even use a basic paint program that your computer may have. To do this, just open the reference photo you will be using for your drawing. Select the dropper tool, and then hover and click on an area to extract a color sample that is right there. Then create a new document, select the paintbrush tool, and click to create the color swatch. Then just repeat this step for various places on the reference photo to get the colors that you're seeing on the actual photo. Once you have enough color samples that you'd like, the next thing you're going to want to do is to take your colored pencils and hold them up to your screen and match your colored pencils to the color swatch as best as you can. This method is really handy if you're working on a large drawing that requires a lot of different colors. The next way you can choose colors is to use a value chart that you can make and match the colors you have on your chart to your reference photo, whether that's a printed out photo or on a screen. To create a color chart, all you need is a piece of paper. It doesn't have to be anything special. You can use printer paper if you would like. Cut it to the size you want and then fill in the samples of your colored pencils along with the name of the color. When it's all finished, lay your color chart over your reference photo and match the colors as best as possible to the reference photo you selected. This method is handy if you have a large variety of colors, different brands, or even the same brand and you want to compare different color charts. The third way you can pick colors is to just hold your colored pencils up to your reference photo and match them. Yep, it's just that simple. One thing to note, if you are using a tablet for your reference photo, depending on the brightness, the colors can look a little more saturated or less saturated, and also look a little different depending on what angle you are sitting at as well. So choose your colors at the brightness and angle that you're going to be working with. The fourth way to choose colors is to understand using primary colors and just grab and go. Lay your colors out or have them nearby in a jar or something and just look at your reference photo and determine which color you need to use for which area you're working on. This way of choosing colors is entirely based on memory and just knowing colors. This can be a little harder than the other methods, but if you are only using one set of colored pencils to work with, it can be really easy to do. It becomes a matter of understanding which of the colors in your set has more yellow, red, or blue, and choosing the colors that have more or less of those primary colors for the area of your drawing that you'll be working on. This method isn't perfect. There is still some trial and error with doing it. If you pick up one color and apply it and then realize it doesn't quite match up to what you think it should be or what you're seeing in the reference photo, you just need to ask if it needs more red, yellow, or blue, and if you need it to be darker also. You aren't going to drastically hurt your drawing if the colors you choose are off. You can try to grab a color that matches better, or sometimes you don't have one that matches better and you just stick to the closest option. Alternatively, you can also mix other colors to more resemble the color that you're going for as well, using the primary colors. The only thing you need to judge is what value of the primary colors you use. Do you need a dark color or a light color? When doing this, less is more. Add a tiny bit at a time and see how it looks before adding any more. This way is sort of similar to the last. If you feel like you need to hold the color up to your reference photo and compare it, go ahead. The difference is that you're going off of just knowing colors and the differences between the colors in your set by memory. This is how I actually choose my colors. I just grab as I go. I pick a color I think will work based on looking at my reference photo Usually I don't have to test it because I know my colors in my set very well, but sometimes I have to, just to make sure it has enough yellow, red, or blue before I start filling in the whole area. And as an example, I can explain using this method. I have some colors lined up here. I've got a set of reds and purples, and what I've done already is lined them up with the colors on the left having more blue and the colors on the right with more red. Now, what might not be obvious to those of you with untrained eyes for colors is that some of the reds have yellow in them, and the purples, of course, are combinations of red and blue, some with more red and some with more blue. Now let's move on to my bonus tip. I'm going to be demonstrating how you can mix colors to equal a color that you may not have in your set. Sometimes we may have a time when we feel like we don't have a particular color we need from our colored pencil set, and this is particularly common if you're using lower count pencil sets. And I'm here to tell you that you don't have to spend extra money on the large pencil sets to make your drawings better and have all the colors you can think of. If you can learn to mix colors well, you can make virtually any color you need. Now, it does take some practice of trial and error, but it can definitely be done and have great results. There are times when a color may be used in a drawing tutorial that you just don't have, and even some of my tutorials over on my Patreon, I use a few luminance colored pencils and Faber-Castell, although I usually try to stick with only using my Faber-Castell to make things easier to follow along with. So let's get into mixing a few colors. I will be demonstrating how to achieve 2 luminance colored pencil colors using only Faber-Castell colored pencils. So I'm applying the steel gray luminance colored pencil down, and then we're going to create a kind of a matching color using only the Faber-Castell colored pencils right next to it, so you can kind of compare. I've already done the color matching up on the upper sections, and one thing is that they are not exact, but they're really close. And I'm not sure that you'll ever be able to get 100% perfectly close, but close enough is going to do you justice with your work. So first I'm starting off using my cool gray, the lighter cool gray color of the Faber-Castell set. It is the Cool Gray 2. And we're gonna start by applying a light little coat of this down first. Well, it's not exactly like super light, but it's kind of almost a medium layer. Next, I'm going to take the Cold Gray 4 and apply a layer of that. Next, I'm going to take light ultramarine and apply a somewhat light layer of this over the top. As I have said in many of my other videos, when you're applying colors, less is more. You can always add more later, so always go in with a light layer and check to make sure it's accurate before you add any more, because once you add it in there, it's hard to take off. You'll be taking off all the other layers you applied in there too. So next, I'm taking the cobalt green and applying a really, really light layer of this color. Now remember, this is the steel gray. Now I'm going to take another Cold Gray 2 and go over the top of this with that. And this Cold Gray 2, I'm kind of applying a little bit more pressure because I'm really kind of adding it in, and I'm burnish blending this color to try and make it as close as I can to that steel gray luminance right next to it. And as you can see there, that the colors aren't exactly perfect, but the colors themselves are actually really, really similar, and it's easier to kind of see that when the image is a little bit blurred and you're not looking at all of the details, because you can see the grains of the individual colors that you've applied versus the one color where it's all been blended smoothly in the manufacturing process. Just gonna write down that name, steel gray, there, just so that we know what that is and don't get confused after. So next we're going to be making the Paynes Gray. And the difference between the steel gray and the Paynes Gray that you can kind of see between the two of them I've done up above is that the Paynes Gray looks a little bit more purpley, whereas the steel gray looks a little more greenish blue, or teal, you could say. It's very, very faint color differences, but you can see those between the two of them. And when you're working on specific types of artwork, it can kind of make or break the area that you're working on, especially with animals. Animals that have gray furs, if you get these kind of colors wrong, it'll throw off the drawing. It's not gonna ruin it, but it'll throw it off, especially if you're going for a specific kind of color with it. So I've applied that luminance down to the paper, and now I'm going to repeat this process on making the Paynes Gray instead of the steel gray. So I'm first starting off with the cold gray 2. As always, one of the lighter colors goes down first, and this is like the base color. Now I'm going to take the cold gray 4 and add a layer of that over the cold gray 2. So now I'm going to take a layer of light ultramarine and add that in there as well, because there is a hint of blue, a little bit more blue than the cool grays are offering. And now I'm going to take Def Blue, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's either Delft Blue or Def Blue. I think it might actually be Def Blue. I'm not keen on pronouncing colors correctly. Go ahead and correct me if I'm wrong. So I'm gonna add a layer of this over the top, and when you're adding colors, especially this one because it's kind of dark, go super, super light and don't add it on too dark. You can always go over it later and make it darker. So now I'm going back through with that cold gray 2. I'm gonna do kind of what I did before with the steel gray, and I'm gonna apply way more pressure when applying this on there, and this is gonna kind of burnish blend those colors together. And so there you have it. I've mixed the two colors here, the steel gray and the Paynes Gray, which are both part of the Luminance colored pencil set. And the one thing that you'll notice between me blending it out on the left and the actual color from the Luminance set or me blending it out on the right, excuse me, and it being the actual color on the left, is that the color on the left looks like a really smooth, buttery, and even color tone, right? And where I have taken the Faber-Castells on the right, it looks kind of textured and grainy looking. And that is because what you are doing by mixing colors is you're mimicking the color that you're getting from one colored pencil. When these manufacturers create their colored pencils, they grind everything up and blend these colors together, taking different pigments that makes the color that you see in the one colored pencil. So it's always going to look smoother and nicer, or more buttery, creamy, whichever you prefer to call it, in the actual color itself versus whatever you make using your own colored pencils, if that makes sense. So you're gonna get the mimicked color, especially when you can pull yourself away and look at it more from a distance, because then your eyes are kind of piecing the colors together and you're not able to focus so much on all of the little grainy details that you're seeing. So your artwork is still going to look much the same as it would if you had used the Luminance. If you would like to learn more colored pencil tips, you should watch the top right video, or you might be more interested in watching the video YouTube suggests for you on the bottom right. Follow me on Instagram and Facebook to stay up to date on my latest artworks and happenings of my studio. Links are in the description. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.